walked over to a mirror and did something else I'd never seen. She turned up the collar on her shirt-waist dress. "That looks dumb," I said. She ignored my comment, smoothing her hair over her ears. My mother wore her dark, wavy hair, cut almost as short as a boy's, and slicked back off her face, a style she referred to as no nonsense. Her only concession to vanity, until the sling-back heels appeared, was the bright pink lipstick she freshened every hour or so. I kept an eye on those shoes. They disappeared into the closet for the rest of the week, although her collar stayed up, and she even added a scarf, a jaunty silk thing that she tied around her neck Western style in a little knot, letting the short ends lap over her collar. Then, on Saturday morning, she tipped her hand. Maddie, my younger sister, who was 10, was lying on the floor in the family room watching the Flintstones. I was perched on the pantry counter, clocking the first of many daily hours of conversation on the telephone with my boyfriend. His name was Stuart, but I called him Sonny and he called me Cher, because like Sonny and Cher, we fancied ourselves sparring partners. "What are you doing?" he would say. "Who wants to know?" was my quick comeback. We thought this was hot stuff. Anyway, Georgia, 4 years older than I, was in Massachusetts, a sophomore in college, and it was just another peaceful weekend morning. My parents drinking coffee, the Lazy Susan stacked with bagels, lox, and cream cheese, when my mother, reading the newspaper, said, "Those damn loggers." The swinging door was open and I could see my parents in the breakfast room. Even though I was deep in Stuart land, I heard the comment and noticed that my father, who was spinning the Lazy Susan in search of a second helping of lox, halted a second. A few nights later, instead of going to his weekly poker game, he followed her to a motel and nearly broke down the door. They fought regularly after this. Night after night, they relived the moment. My father's eureka at the breakfast table, my mother's fury and humiliation at being caught in bed with Tom Winston, the biology teacher, who, we learned from the fights, was a very active member of the Sierra Club. He had red hair and he was huge. "His body is as big as a double bed," Georgia said ominously, when Maddie and I took the telephone into the hall closet and, hunkering under the coats, called to let her know what had happened. "Was he your teacher?" I asked. "Yes. He taught me to dissect frogs. How can Mom have sex with someone who knows that much about your insides?" Maddie yanked the phone away from me. "Come home, Georgia." I pulled it back. "She can't, Maddie. Do you want her to flunk out?" I tried to imagine what I would look like if Tom Winston were my father. Would I be as big as an ostrich, forced to buy my clothes at the tall women's shop instead of wearing my neat size 7? Maybe I wouldn't have black hair with curls springing in all directions, but thick, well-behaved tangerine-colored locks that kept a clear part in 1 o'clock position. Would I have blue eyes instead of brown? Blue eyes with, oh God, pinkish lashes like his? Every day I invented reasons, told to no one but myself, why I had to walk by the science lab. I sneaked a look, barely taking in a blur of microscopes in Tom Winston's white lab coat. I never saw my mother with him, something I craved and dreaded, and Tom Winston never looked at me. He traveled through the halls as if on cross-country skis, making gigantic strides, and if by accident we passed, he didn't jerk or slow down. There wasn't even a flicker in his eyes that we had a connection. I checked out the lab every day right through June, and then, on the first day of my junior year, I took another surreptitious stroll past. Where was Tom Winston? I waited until after French class, pretending to take a long time collecting my books. When I was the only one left in the room with Monsieur Lecard, I said very casually, "Oh." The O was important. It showed that this thought had just popped into my head. "Oh, I was walking by the science lab, and I noticed there's a new teacher. What happened to Mr. Winston?" "En français," said Monsieur Lecard. "Où est Monsieur Winston?" I said, starting to sweat, thinking that my mother was going to appear, just waltz in from her English class at that very moment. "Il est à Big Bear." Big Bear? I called Georgia at college. "He moved to Big Bear. Do you think they're through? Where's that?" "It's this grungy little town in the mountains. I went there by accident once when I was going to Lake Arrowhead. It has a bowling alley." "Los Angeles has bowling alleys." "That's not what I mean." I could hear her disgust. "I mean, that's all there is. At night, people come out of their log cabins and go bowling. Guess what? I'm engaged." "Hey, congratulations." "Georgia's engaged," I said to my mom when she came in from the garden, where she was inspecting the rose bushes. My mother frequently inspected the roses after she did the puzzle. Then she gave the gardener instructions. When I was older, I wondered why she had so much to say. Joe and I have rose bushes, and the only thing we do is cut them back and spray them. Cut and spray, cut and spray. Maybe she was having an affair with the gardener, too. "She's going to call tonight and tell us all about him." "It won't last," said my mom. She opened the cabinet, took out a bottle of scotch, and poured herself a glass. It was 4 p.m, and she did it as if she were having orange juice. I watched, eating Oreos, as she dropped in 2 ice cubes. "Are you looking at something?" she asked. No." "Want an Oreo?" I offered the bag. "Don't be smart, Eve." "I'm not." My mother considered, poking the ice cubes down with her finger. I thought she was thinking about me, but then she turned, looked out the window, and began slowly sipping her drink as if I weren't there at all. She had never been much of a cook. Her idea of dinner was broiled meat. Chicken, lamb chops, or steak, baked potatoes, and a bird's eye frozen vegetable. But at least she used to arrange the food on platters and let my dad serve. These days, she loaded up our plates in the kitchen, and while we ate, she disappeared into the den and poured another scotch. I tried to keep my father occupied. "How's the writing going?" It was something I'd heard one of his poker friends ask him. "Fine." My father stared at the door in my mother's direction. I kicked Maddie. "Mrs. Weber plays favorites. She really does," Maddie yacked. "She won't put me in the front row of the Pilgrim tableau. I'm going to complain to the principal." "She can't complain about that, can she, Dad?" My father flung his fork across the room, and we were struck dumb. He went into the den, and they started screaming at each other. Our house, like all the houses on the street, sat on an ivy-covered hill, which sloped down to the sidewalk. Once, really late at night during the fights, my mom threw herself off the front steps. It was as if she were doing a gigantic belly flop off a diving board. She landed with a smack in the ivy and lay there, face down. Maddie and I watched, amazed, our faces pressed against an upstairs window, making little breath circles on the pane, with our mouths hung open. After a few minutes, our mother stood up and came back inside. Had she expected us to rush out? Or had she been waiting for something to happen, something like death? And when it didn't, had she just returned to the house to scream some more? When Georgia came home for Christmas, she, Maddie, and I went out for ice cream. We sat in a row, Georgia eating pistachio, Maddie peppermint stick, and me chocolate chip. And I told Georgia all about Mom's fever.